Hello everybody and welcome to another YouTube video. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 15 programming projects. I'm going to specifically share with you 5 beginner projects, 5 intermediate projects, and finally 5 advanced programming projects. Hopefully there's something for everybody in this video and you'll all be able to find some inspiration and motivation to go out there and start working on another programming project. So with that said, that's all I had for you for the introduction. I hope you enjoy and let's get into the video. So we're going to dive into the first 5 projects in 1 second, but I want to quickly mention that these projects are not language specific. So although some of these projects may be better suited to a specific language, it doesn't matter which one you know, and well, there should be something on this list for everyone, regardless of the tools and technologies that you know. Now with that said, if for some reason in this video you can't find any projects that you like, it will not be a waste because you can at least check out the sponsor of this video. Before we get started, I need to thank Coding Ninjas for sponsoring this video. Coding Ninjas is an online coding school that offers courses in many programming languages and frameworks. Specifically, they offer 2 courses in web development. Those are advanced front-end web development with React and full-stack web development. Coding Ninjas is highly reputable as it was founded by Stanford alumni and has a 4.9 star rating on Facebook and Google. In Coding Ninja's web development courses, you can learn React.js, JavaScript, and Node.js by working on real-life projects like full-fledged social media sites. Coding Ninjas has great support for students and offers one-on-one help to resolve any doubts or answer any questions you may have. Coding Ninjas also has an excellent faculty made up of industry experts and provides mentor support, exceptional course curriculum, and a certificate of completion for each and every course. Become a Code Ninja today and get 10% off by hitting the link in the description. Alright, so let's dive into these beginner projects. The first one I have for you is a password validator or a password generator. Now what I mean by this is creating some kind of project that can generate a custom password for someone or that can check if a password meets certain requirements. So the best example of this is say you go and try to create a new account on some website and then you get that little notification popping up or you get that little red line saying, hey, your password isn't strong enough. Maybe you don't have enough digits. Maybe you don't have, enough numbers in it or special characters or whatever it may be. And then the opposite of that is actually creating or recommending a password to a user. So I remember when I first started programming, one of the first things that I did was create a password generator. You gave it a bunch of inputs. So say the length of the password, if you wanted special characters, if you wanted any characters omitted, and then it went ahead and generated that password. So definitely a great idea and a great beginner programming project. Now the next one I have for you, this one is getting a little bit more advanced, but is also a really good one to work on, and this is tic-tac-toe or X's and O's. Now personally, I have a tutorial video on my channel going through how to create this, so I'll leave a card to it or link it in the description. But I always find creating something somewhat visual or some kind of game is always a great way to practice programming, and personally, some of my favorite projects are just creating little games. So tic-tac-toe is a great idea, and what you can do just to give you an idea of how you can start programming that is you can print out a board in the console. So you can use the pipe or you can use the dash to kind of create a sample board. And then you can have the user type in some number. So say between 1 and 9 to select which square they want to place an X in. Then of course you need a little bit of logic to check if someone has actually won the game or if you've tied the game. But it's pretty straightforward. It's a great project. And if you're someone who's not an absolute beginner, that's definitely a good one to work on. The next one I have for you guys may surprise you because this may seem pretty advanced, but I'm actually going to recommend that you create a basic website. Now it's actually really easy, especially in 2020, to create a really simple website. You don't need to do anything crazy on the back end. And this is great because if you're just getting into programming, this is a really visual thing. And this will let you learn a little bit about web development and kind of start you on that path. So what I recommend for beginners, if they want to create a really basic website, is to use a module called Flask or to use some really basic JavaScript or Node.js module that can just boot you up a super simple backend really quickly. So personally, I've used Flask before. That's what I typically recommend to beginners. And this is a super lightweight, super easy Python module that you can use to spin up a website literally within probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes, just following along with the basic tutorial. And then from there, you don't even have to write too much code code on the back end, what you can do is work on the front end. So you can deal with HTML, CSS, and you can make something that actually looks decent with very minimal programming skill. And then from there, of course, you can add to the website. And this is just a kind of a great project for anyone to work on, and especially for beginners. So if you're a beginner, don't be intimidated by websites. You can make them really easily. Just learn a really basic module, something like Flask, and then you can boot one up literally within minutes. Now, the next project idea I have has to do with web scraping. Now, I don't have anything super specific for you here, but pretty much coming up with some kind of project where you can grab information from a website, bring it to your computer locally, and then just analyze that information or display that information in a nice format. So to give you an example of something that I did with web scraping at the beginning of this whole crazy pandemic going on, I created a coronavirus web scraper that allowed you to actually ask questions about countries' case data and have that automatically printed out to the console. So what it did was it scraped all of the case numbers from a certain website, and then it just stored it kind of in like a Python dictionary or a list or something in my program. And then I could ask questions to the computer. So something like, how many cases does this country have? And they would actually spit out the answer to me. Now, of course, this is getting a little bit more advanced, but hopefully that gives you an idea. And some other really cool projects I've seen with web scraping have to do with like scraping Amazon prices or looking for like deals on specific websites. And then it sends you like a little notification when a price drops below a certain point. Super simple stuff like that, not hard to do. And if you're looking for some concrete modules or steps to start working with web scraping, ones that I've personally used include Beautiful Soup. This is a Python module, as well as a module called Selenium. This is more for doing website automation, but definitely a cool thing to check out. I actually happen to have a full tutorial series on Selenium. I'll leave a card or link to that in the description. So my fifth programming project idea for the beginner category is probably my favorite and the one that I always recommend to people just getting started, and this is a choose your own adventure game. So the way this works is you're asked a series of questions. So you start at some position or some, node or whatever you want to call it. And then you're asked something like, do you want to go left or do you want to go right? Or do you want to jump or do you want to swim? Some kind of decision you're given. And then based on the decision you make, you're asked a different question. So let's take the example where you're asked to go left or right. If you go left, maybe you fall off a cliff and then boom, game is over. That was pretty extreme. Or if you go right, now you're asked a different set of questions like, oh, you see a lake. Do you want to swim through it or do you want to walk around it? Then based on that answer, you get asked a different set of questions, and so on and so forth. This is really easy to make. I have a tutorial on my channel for this game specifically, and you can make it as advanced as you want. You can implement things like health. You can make it so people can like pick up weapons, right? And it's super easy to do because all you do is just ask people to type in some answer, and then based on what they type in, you ask them a different type of question or change some variables around or something like that. So anyways, that is going to conclude the beginner programming projects. Now let's dive into the intermediate ones. All right, so getting into the intermediate projects here, I'll quickly mention that it's pretty hard to categorize what a project is, right? If it's hard, if it's easy, if it's medium, it really depends how much effort you put into it and kind of what you're trying to do with the specific project. So some of you may think these are beginners, some of you may think these are advanced. Just want to mention that this is a very subjective rating, and just because I call something easy or intermediate doesn't mean that it couldn't be an advanced project. Anyways, let's jump into the first project idea I have here, and this is one of my favorite ones to do. This is really how I got interested in coding, and this is creating simple 2D games. Now, personally, the games that I really like to create are old Atari games or old kind of two-dimensional ones like Brick Breaker, Tetris, Space Invaders, stuff like that. I have all kinds of tutorials on my channel where I create these games. One of my favorite modules to do them in is Pygame, but of course, if you know JavaScript, you can create something on the web. If you know C++ or C# or something like that, you can do this in a game engine, maybe like Unity. I don't know, I just make Python games, but they're fun to make. They teach you a lot, and they're always a great project just because it's really visual and you have kind of a nice rewarding thing after that you can actually play and mess around with. So my next idea for you guys is for people that are interested in computer software as well as computer hardware, and this is to work on some project related to a Raspberry Pi or some other microcontroller or whatever you call these things. This is a Jetson Nano from NVIDIA. But anyways, these things are really cool and they let you actually have your software connect with your hardware. So for example, on this Raspberry Pi here, I have it in a little case. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. And there's a little camera that's actually kind of right here. You can see the hole for it. And then there's all these pins up here, which are called GPIO pins. And these actually allow you to control the voltage or the output coming from these pins two little wires. So if you set up like a really basic breadboard, you can have some kind of cables going in there. You can toggle light switches. You can also do way more advanced things. One of the projects I've made with this Raspberry Pi was actually a mini security system. So these are cool. I think this is the Raspberry Pi 3 or one of the newer models. I don't know which one they are. I think it goes for like a little over $100 or something like that. Definitely a worthwhile investment and something that you can have a lot of fun with and do a lot of cool stuff with. Now, my next project idea for you guys, and I'm always nervous to say this word now because you guys roasted me for my pronunciation the last time, but it is a Sudoku solver. Now, I think I said that right, but I guess the comments will tell me after. Anyways, this is a really cool project because what you can do is you can make the Sudoku game itself. So you can make it so you can actually play the game. You can have people, insert the numbers and see if they're correct. Or you can have it so you actually create something that can solve a Sudoku board. So I've created this project and I kind of did a combination of what I just described. I made the actual Sudoku game so you could fully play it. You could, pencil in little numbers and then you could actually insert numbers into the board. And then anytime you were stuck or that you just wanted to solve it, you could press the spacebar and it would actually automatically go through the board and solve the rest of it. So a cool project idea and something that definitely is kind of an impressive thing to throw on a resume or something that's cool to talk about and show to other people. Now, my next project idea here is a pretty famous one. I've talked about this on my channel and a bunch of other YouTubers have shown their kind of versions of this as well, but this is an algorithm visualizer. Now, I have to mention this project because it's such a great thing to do. You pick something like a sorting algorithm or a searching algorithm or whatever it may be, then you just go ahead and visualize that algorithm. I'll try to pop up some examples on the screen so you can see what I mean. But this is always a fun project. It's super visual. It looks great. And if you spend a lot of time on the design and the UI of it, it's definitely a really impressive project and something that you can show off on a resume, talk about at an interview, or whatever it may be. So the last project idea I have for you guys in the intermediate category has to do with scheduling and scheduling conflicts. Now, this is hard to explain, so I'm just going to give you a concrete example of something I made relating to that title, and then we can talk about it after. So I was working at a summer camp about 3 years ago, and at that summer camp, there's like 200 kids each week or something around that. And these kids are split up into a bunch of groups. So there's like, groups 1 to 10 or groups 1 to 11 or whatever. Anyways, all these groups have to partake in activities every day. They have, 4 main activities, then they have lunch, then they go swimming, and then some other things throughout the day. Anyways, you can't have the same group at the same activity at the same time because there's only, enough resources for one group, but there's only one person able to coach that at a time. So every single week, the office staff at that camp had to create a manual schedule that for every single group said what activities they had every single day. And it was really a huge pain because they had all these schedules laid out and they had to make sure there was no conflicts or anything wrong with the schedules. So I saw them doing this and I offered to them, hey, do you guys want me to make like a really basic scheduling software that can at minimum point out the conflicts you guys have in your schedules or can actually create them for you? Long story short, I worked on this for a bunch of hours, ended up making something that automatically generated the schedules. They were super happy. This was an awesome project and it was super useful. So projects like that are always great. And well, hopefully that gave you an idea for something you could work on. So let's dive into the advanced projects now. I'll go through these fairly quickly. They're just a few cool ideas I had off the top of my head. And of course, please do leave a comment down below if you have other project ideas that you want to share. So let's dive into the advanced projects now. The first idea I have to share with you is to create a chess engine or a physics engine or some type of game engine. Now, to give you a concrete example of something I've made that would relate to this category or to this topic, I created a mini golf game. You guys may have seen it on my YouTube channel, but this actually uses real physics. There was a golf ball and you had a certain amount of power you shot the golf ball with. If it hit a wall, it would bounce off. It, followed gravity. It had projectile motion. All of that kind of stuff. Friction was implemented. So creating something like that is definitely really hard. It takes a long time, but it's super rewarding and definitely a really cool and advanced project. So my next idea is to create your own programming language or your own interpreter for an existing programming language. Now, I'm not really going to dive into this because if you don't understand that, then it's a lot to explain in one video. But the idea behind this is if you pick a pretty simple language, it's actually pretty easy to make an interpreter for it. For example, I did a video on a language called Brain Bleep. I can't say the final word because you guys know what it is. I'll put it on the screen. But anyways, you can actually create your own interpreter for this language. It's pretty easy to do, and it's pretty cool to kind of work on that side of the programming language. So definitely I would consider it to be an advanced topic. And of course, creating your own programming language, not going to get into that, but definitely an advanced project and something that is cool to do. My next idea relating to advanced projects is something to do with machine learning or artificial intelligence. Some of my favorite projects that I've worked on have used artificial intelligence. For example, my series on AI, Flappy Bird, so the artificial intelligence that learns how to play the game of Flappy Bird. I've also done a lot of stuff with object detection and recognition. That's always really cool, especially if you hook it up to a real-time camera. And yeah, I'll kind of leave it there, but those are some advanced project ideas in the machine learning and AI field. Next, I think I might have mentioned this, but the security system with Raspberry Pi. So I did mention using Raspberry Pi and using those kind of microcontrollers or whatever you call them in the intermediate section, but I would say that an advanced project I worked on was this security system with my Raspberry Pi. So as I mentioned in the intermediate section, anytime someone came by the Raspberry Pi, there was a little motion sensor that detected that. It turned on the camera, it took a video or picture of the person, then it used a face detection algorithm to determine who that person was. It actually stored a log of that, and then it sent me an email saying, hey, this person passed by this position. And of course, if you had multiple Raspberry Pis, you could set up a bunch of them and make your own little security system. And finally, moving on to my last idea, this is to create your own API or your own web service. Now, the reason I'm recommending this is because this is really good practice. This is something that a lot of software engineers will need to do. And designing an API, although you could make a really simple one, is definitely not easy, especially if you do it well. And then you could take an API or take some web service, whatever you create, and connect that with a bunch of different applications. So you can have data shared in one main area. That's also going to mean hooking this up with a database. It's going to mean hosting it on the cloud, trying to get some domain associated with it. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of opportunities for learning, and definitely a great project idea. So anyways, that has been this video. I hope at minimum this gave you guys some ideas, some inspiration. Definitely let me know of any of the projects you like down below or any that you think I forgot and that should have been mentioned. With that said, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in another YouTube video.